I know exactly how they fight. Back in Zaruma, the victory celebrations never came. The queen's army had survived, but not without loss. Several experienced warriors had fallen. Others returned wounded. The people welcomed them home with tears instead of songs. That night, Queen Amara stood alone on the palace balcony, looking over the sleeping city. General Kofi joined her, his arm wrapped in blood-stained bandages. Cassian nearly had us. Amara nodded. Yes, for the first time. We reacted instead of planned. She looked toward the northern horizon where distant campfires flickered in the darkness. Cassian has changed. He is no longer chasing victory. He is studying me. Before Kofi could answer, hurried footsteps echoed through the palace. A royal guard burst onto the balcony. My queen, the northern watchtowers are sending urgent signals. What is it? Amara asked. The guard struggled to catch his breath. The Imperial army has disappeared. General Kofi stared at him. Disappeared. The guard nodded nervously. Their camps are empty. Their fires have gone cold. Our scouts cannot find them anywhere. A heavy silence settled over the balcony. Queen Amara slowly turned toward the dark horizon. An enemy she could see, she could defeat, but an enemy that had vanished without a trace was far more dangerous. The Valerian army had vanished. For 5 long days, not a single Imperial soldier was seen. Scouts searched the forests, climbing the mountains, followed every river crossing. They found nothing. It was as though the greatest army in the world had disappeared into the earth. Inside the royal council chamber, an uneasy silence hung in the air. Prince Malik paced back and forth. I don't like this. General Kofi nodded. Neither do I. Queen Amara stood before a large map of the kingdom. Cassian isn't retreating. He is preparing. Elder Nuru slowly pointed to the map. If I were him, I would not attack our army. I would attack our hope. Before anyone could ask what he meant, the palace doors burst open. A messenger stumbled inside, covered in dust. My queen, the western watchtower has fallen. Another messenger rushed in moments later. The eastern watchtower has stopped sending signals. Then a third arrived. The southern trade road has been blocked. General Kofi's face darkened. He was not hiding. He was surrounding us. Queen Amara immediately understood. Cassian has encircled the capital. The next morning, the truth became clear. From the highest tower of the royal citadel, the people looked beyond the city walls. Their hearts sank. As far as the eye could see, thousands upon thousands of black imperial tents covered the plains. Smoke from countless campfires rose into the sky. The black eagle banners fluttered in every direction. Zaruma was completely surrounded. No food could enter. No messenger could leave. The siege had begun. General Cassian rode to the front of the imperial lines beneath a white flag. Standing outside the city gates, he called out, Queen Amara, you have fought bravely, but bravery cannot feed your people. I offer you one final chance. Open the gates. Swear loyalty to the Empire, and no innocent life will be lost. His words echoed across the silent battlefield. The great gates of Zaruma slowly opened. Imperial soldiers raised their weapons. Instead of an army, one rider emerged. Queen Amara. She rode alone until she stood just beyond the gates. Cassian smiled. Have you come to surrender? The queen looked calmly across the sea of imperial soldiers. Then she answered, I came to tell you something. Cassian waited. You have surrounded our city, but you still haven't conquered it. Without another word, she turned her horse and rode back through the gates. The massive doors slammed shut. Cassian's smile disappeared. So be it. He raised his sword. No one enters. No one leaves. Let hunger finish what my army cannot. Days turned into weeks. The city's food stores slowly diminished. Bread became smaller. Meals became fewer. Yet something remarkable happened. No one complained. Families shared what little they had. The wealthy ate beside the poor. The palace kitchens served ordinary citizens before preparing meals for the royal family. Queen Amara herself accepted the same simple bowl of porridge as every soldier. When the people saw this, their determination grew stronger. If our queen can endure, so can we. Throughout the city, everyone found a way to help. Blacksmiths repaired damaged armor. Carpenters strengthened the gates. Women stitched uniforms and carried water. Children gathered herbs for the healers. Even the elderly shaped stones that could be thrown from the walls if the enemy attacked. The entire kingdom had become one army. Watching from his command, Cassian frowned. They should be breaking by now. One of his officers nodded. Instead, they seemed stronger. Cassian stared toward the city walls. Then we stopped waiting. He pointed toward the towering gates. Prepare the siege towers, battering rams, catapults. If hunger won't defeat Zaruma, we will. Before dawn the next day, the earth began to shake. From the city walls, soldiers watched as enormous siege towers rolled forward. Massive battering rams protected by iron roofs advanced behind rows of shield-bearing infantry. Dozens of giant catapults were pulled into position. General Kofi tightened his grip on his sword. This is the assault we have been expecting. Queen Amara looked across the battlefield. No, she whispered. This is only the beginning. At that very moment, a young palace guard came running up the wall. My queen, we have discovered something beneath the old temple. General Kofi looked surprised. What is it? The guard lowered his voice. On the Grand Passage. Elder Nuru believes it leads beyond the city walls. Every eye turned toward the old advisor. Nuru's expression was grave. My father told me of it when I was a child. I believed it was only a legend. He looked directly at Queen Amara. If the tunnel still exists, it may be our only chance. The queen looked once more at the vast imperial army surrounding Zaruma, then back toward the ancient temple. Hope had appeared, not above the ground, but beneath it. Before the first light of dawn touched the walls of Zaruma, Queen Amara, General Kofi, Elder Nuru, and Prince Malik gathered beneath the ancient temple at the center of the city. Holding a flickering torch, Elder Nuru led them through a narrow stone staircase hidden beneath the temple floor. The air was cold. Dust covered every surface. Spider webs stretched across the ancient passage. It has been centuries, Nuru whispered. No one has walked these halls since the reign of the first kings. The tunnel descended deeper into the earth until they reached an enormous stone door engraved with the royal seal of Zaruma. With the help of several soldiers, the heavy door slowly creaked open. Beyond it stretched a long underground passage disappearing into darkness. General Kofi smiled. It still stands. Queen Amara nodded. Then Zaruma still has hope. That evening, while General Cassian prepared his siege engines, a small group of Zaruma's finest warriors quietly entered the tunnel. Only 50 soldiers. Each carried a sword, a bow, and enough food for 2 days. Prince Malik stepped forward. I will lead them. Queen Amara shook her head. No, the kingdom still needs its prince. Malik frowned. And what if it loses its queen? Amara smiled gently. Then it will need a king. Before Malik could answer, she placed a hand on his shoulder. This mission belongs to me. General Kofi immediately objected. My queen, it is too dangerous. If something happens to you, she interrupted him. If we do nothing, something will happen to everyone. Kofi lowered his head. He knew she was right. Hours later, the hidden passage emerged inside a dense forest several miles beyond the imperial lines. The queen carefully pushed aside a curtain of vines covering the exit. She looked toward the enemy camp. Thousands of tents stretched across the plain. Huge wagons filled with grain stood near the center. Rows of horses rested inside wooden enclosures. The imperial army believed its supplies were completely safe. They had no idea the enemy was already behind them. Queen Amara quietly gave her orders. No unnecessary fighting. Destroy their food. Burn their weapons. Disappear before sunrise. The warriors silently nodded. Moving through the darkness like shadows, the Zaruman soldiers slipped between the sleeping camp. 2 guards were quietly disarmed without raising an alarm. Another patrol walked past without noticing them. Within minutes, oil jars were placed beneath the largest supply wagons. Bundles of dry straw were scattered around stacks of grain. General Kofi looked toward the queen. Everything is ready. Amara raised a single torch. For Zaruma. She lowered it. The torch touched the oil. Whoosh. Flames exploded across the wagon. A second wagon ignited. Then a third. Within moments, the center of the Imperial camp was consumed by fire. Fire. Protect the supplies. The enemy is inside the camp. Imperial soldiers rushed in every direction. Smoke filled the night. Panicked horses broke through their fences. Burning wagons rolled downhill, spreading the flames even farther. The once orderly camp became complete chaos. Queen Amara's warriors disappeared into the darkness before the enemy understood what had happened. General Cassian rushed from his command tent. His face hardened as he watched months of supplies burn before his eyes. No, this is impossible. He grabbed the nearest captain. How did they get behind our lines? The captain shook his head. We don't know, my general. Cassian stared at the burning camp. Then his eyes slowly turned toward the walls of Zaruma. There must be another way out of the city. He immediately gave new orders. Search every cave, every riverbank, every hill. They're using a hidden passage. Before sunrise, Queen Amara and her warriors safely returned through the tunnel. The people waiting inside the temple erupted in cheers. For the first time since the siege had begun, hope returned to Zaruma. But Elder Nuru did not celebrate. His expression remained troubled. Queen Amara noticed. What troubles you? The old advisor looked toward the tunnel. This passage has protected our kingdom for generations. He paused. Now the Empire knows it exists. General Kofi's smile disappeared. If Cassian finds the entrance, he'll lead his army straight into the heart of the city. Before anyone could respond, a palace guard came running into the temple. My queen, the Imperial army has stopped attacking. Prince Malik looked confused. Why would they stop now? The guard struggled to catch his breath. They are not preparing another assault. They're digging. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Queen Amara looked toward the tunnel entrance. General Kofi slowly drew his sword. If Cassian has discovered where the tunnel leads, he is not coming over the walls. The queen's face grew grave. He is coming. From beneath them, the news spread through the palace like wildfire. The Imperial army had stopped attacking. The catapults were silent. The battering rams stood motionless. Even the war drums had fallen quiet. Instead, thousands of Imperial engineers had begun digging into the earth. From the city walls, General Kofi watched hundreds of workers disappear into deep trenches protected by rows of Imperial soldiers. They are tunneling, he said grimly. Queen Amara nodded. Cassian has guessed our secret. Elder Nuru looked toward the ancient temple. If they reach our passage first, they will be inside the city before sunrise. The queen immediately summoned her council. A map of the underground tunnels lay across the stone table. Only Elder Nuru understood the maze completely. He traced a trembling finger across the faded lines. The royal passage is only one of many. There were escape routes, storage chambers, and abandoned mining tunnels built centuries ago. Prince Malik leaned close. Can we collapse them? Nuru slowly shook his head. If we destroy the wrong tunnel, the palace itself could fall. The room fell silent. Every decision now carried enormous risk. Finally, Queen Amara spoke. We are not going to wait for Cassian. We will meet him underground. That night, 50 of Zaruma's bravest warriors followed the queen into the darkness beneath the city. Each carried a torch, a sword, and a short spear. The tunnels echoed with dripping water. Ancient carvings covered the walls, telling stories of the kingdom's founders. The deeper they traveled, the colder the air became. Then, General Kofi raised his hand. Listen, everyone stopped. At first, there was nothing. Then came a faint sound. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Metal striking stone. The Empire was close. Far below the earth, Imperial miners worked tirelessly, breaking through layers of rock under Cassian's orders. If we reach the city before dawn, Cassian told them the gates will never need to open. Suddenly, one miner froze. My general, I hear voices. Before Cassian could answer, a torch appeared at the far end of the tunnel. Then another, and another. Queen Amara stepped into the narrow passage. Her sword reflected the torchlight. So, Cassian said quietly. We finally meet on equal ground. The tunnel was too narrow for armies. Only a handful of warriors could fight at once. Cassian smiled. No walls, no traps, no forests, only steel. Queen Amara lifted her sword. That is all I will need. The battle beneath the earth erupted with incredible fury. Steel clashed against steel. The confined tunnel magnified every sound. Sparks flew as swords collided. General Kofi fought shoulder to shoulder with the queen holding back wave after wave of imperial soldiers. Prince Malik defended the rear, refusing to let anyone slip past. Despite their courage, the imperial soldiers kept coming. Cassian had sent hundreds into the tunnels. The defenders were growing exhausted. General Kofi glanced toward the queen. We can't hold them forever. Amara looked around. Then she noticed something carved into the ceiling. Ancient support pillars. Her eyes widened. Elder Nuru. The pillars. The old advisor understood instantly. If they fall, the entire tunnel collapses. General Kofi hesitated. We'll be trapped too. Queen Amara looked at every warrior beside her. If this passage remains open, Zaruma falls tonight. No one argued. They knew what had to be done. While the soldiers held the enemy back, Elder Nuru and several engineers hurried to weaken the ancient supports at El. Cracks spread across the stone ceiling. Dust rained down. Cassian realized what was happening. They are bringing the tunnel down. He shouted to his men. Forward. Now, the fighting became even more desperate. One by one, Zaruma's warriors retreated toward the city. General Kofi was the last to fall back. He turned, raised a shield, and blocked Cassian's final charge. Go, he shouted. Queen Amara refused to leave until every soldier had crossed the final chamber. Only then did she give the order. Collapse it, with a thunderous roar. The ancient support shattered. The ground shook violently. Massive stones crashed from the ceiling. The tunnel disappeared beneath an avalanche of rock. A cloud of dust surged through the darkness. Silence followed. Hours later, as dawn broke, Zaruma's scouts confirmed the news. The Imperial tunnel had been completely destroyed. Cassian's underground assault had failed. But the victory had come at a terrible price. The collapse had buried the ancient royal passage forever. The secret escape route that had protected Zaruma for generations was gone. Queen Amara stood atop the city wall watching the rising sun. General Kofi approached, his armor cracked and stained with dust. We stopped him. Amara nodded quietly. Yes, but Cassian won't make the same mistake twice. As if to prove her, right, a trumpet sounded from the Imperial camp. Across the plain, thousands of soldiers assembled into perfect formation. The siege towers rolled forward once more. Behind them, a magnificent black chariot appeared. Golden standards fluttered in the morning wind. Every Imperial soldier immediately knelt. General Kofi's face turned pale. That can't be. Queen Amara narrowed her eyes. Only one man in the Empire commanded such loyalty. The ruler who had never lost a war. Emperor Lucius Valerius had come to lead the final battle himself. The arrival of Emperor Lucius Valerius changed everything. As his black chariot rolled across the battlefield, more than 100,000 Imperial soldiers struck their shields with their swords. The thunderous rhythm echoed across the plains. Boom, boom, boom. From the walls of Zaruma, even the bravest defenders felt the ground tremble. General Kofi tightened his grip on his sword. The Emperor has come to finish this himself. Queen Amara watched silently. She knew one truth. When an emperor leaves the safety of his palace, it means victory has become more important than his own life. That afternoon, a lone rider carrying a white banner approached the city gates. It was General Cassian. He stopped a safe distance from the walls. Queen Amara, he shouted, the emperor offers you one final chance. Surrender today, and your people will live. If you refuse, by tomorrow Zaruma will exist only in memory. The city walls remained silent. Then Queen Amara appeared above the main gate. She looked down at Cassian. You have crossed deserts. You have conquered kingdoms. You have frightened the world. She paused. But you still do not understand, my people. Cassian narrowed his eyes. And what don't I understand? The queen answered without hesitation. You think we are fighting because we believe we cannot die. A gentle breeze carried her voice across the battlefield. We are fighting because we believe some things are worth dying for. Cassian stared at her for a long moment. Without another word, he turned his horse and rode back to the imperial camp. He already knew there would be no surrender. Before sunrise, the war horns sounded. The final assault had begun. Imperial catapults hurled massive stones against the city walls. Towering siege towers rolled forward. Thousands of archers filled the sky with arrows. The defenders answered with volleys of their own. The battlefield disappeared beneath clouds of dust and smoke. General Kofi commanded the western wall. Prince Malik defended the eastern gate. Queen Amara rode wherever the fighting was fiercest, encouraging exhausted soldiers and leading every counterattack herself. Her courage spread through the ranks like fire. Whenever the defenders saw their queen, they fought harder. Hours passed. The walls held, but only barely. Then disaster struck. With a deafening crash, one section of the northern wall collapsed. Imperial soldiers poured through the opening. The wall has fallen, a guard shouted. General Kofi rushed toward the breach with the royal guard. Steel clashed against steel. The battle became hand-to-hand, street by street, house by house. The defenders fought to stop the invasion. Deep inside the city, Queen Amara climbed onto the broken remains of the wall. She looked around. The situation was desperate. If the enemy captured the city square, the battle would be over. She turned to the soldiers around her. My friends, today is not the day we defend stone walls. She pointed toward the people behind them. Our families are behind us. Our children are behind us. Our future is behind us. So we take one step forward, and we never take one back. A mighty roar answered her. For Zaruma, the defenders charged. The streets became a sea of flashing swords and raised shields. Again and again, the imperial soldiers tried to push forward. Again and again, they were driven back. Meanwhile, Emperor Lucius watched from a nearby hill. His expression remained calm. They fight with remarkable courage. General Cassian nodded. They always have. The emperor slowly drew his sword. It is time. He mounted his white war horse. Advanced the imperial guard. The empire's finest warriors began moving toward the shattered wall. Cassian looked at the emperor in surprise. Your Majesty, you cannot enter the battle yourself. Lucius looked toward the city. I have conquered half the known world. I will not allow one queen to stain that legacy. With that, he spurred his horse forward. The imperial guard followed. From the city wall, Queen Amara saw the emperor's banner moving toward the breach. General Kofi rode beside her. If the emperor enters the city, our soldiers may lose heart. The queen slowly lifted her spear. No, she mounted her horse. They will gain hope. General Kofi looked at her in disbelief. What are you planning? Queen Amara fastened her helmet. I'm ending this. She turned to the royal guard. Ride with me. The city gates opened. A small force of Zaruma's finest cavalry thundered out of the city, straight toward the emperor himself. Both armies stopped in astonishment. No one had expected the besieged queen to launch a cavalry charge. Queen Amara lowered her spear. Across the battlefield, Emperor Lucius lowered his sword. The distance between them closed rapidly. Two rulers, two armies, one final chance to decide the fate of a kingdom. Just as they were about to collide, a powerful clap of thunder shook the sky. Dark clouds rolled over the battlefield. The first heavy drops of rain began to fall. Neither ruler slowed down. Lightning split the dark sky. Rain poured across the battlefield, turning the dry plains into thick mud within minutes. The thunder drowned out the clash of steel. Still neither ruler slowed. Queen Amara and Emperor Lucius charged straight toward one another. Their weapons collided with a deafening crash. The force of the impact sent both horses rearing. Around them the battle erupted once more. The Imperial Guard crashed into Zaruma's royal guard. General Kofi fought like a man possessed, cutting through the emperor's finest warriors to reach his queen. Prince Malik arrived with fresh defenders from the eastern gate, striking the enemy's exposed flank. The rain grew heavier. The once proud imperial cavalry began to struggle. Their horses slipped in the deepening mud. Heavy armor, once their greatest advantage, now became their greatest burden. Queen Amara looked across the battlefield and smiled. This is the moment. Months earlier, Elder Nuru had warned her that the plains outside Zaruma became a swamp after heavy rains. She had remembered every word. She had deliberately refused to fight the Empire there. Until now, the Emperor had unknowingly ridden his greatest army into nature's trap. "Signal the left wing," she commanded. A great war horn echoed across the battlefield. Hidden behind low hills, hundreds of Zaruman cavalrymen appeared. They had waited all morning for this single moment. Now, they charged downhill. The Imperial army tried to turn and face them, but the mud held them in place. General Cassian shouted desperate orders. "Reform the lines. Protect the Emperor." His soldiers struggled to obey. Then another horn sounded. From a nearby forest emerged Zaruma's archers. Volley after volley of arrows rained onto the trapped Imperial ranks. Panic spread through the army. For the first time in decades, the soldiers of the Valerian Empire began to retreat. Seeing his army falter, Emperor Lucius urged his horse toward Queen Amara once again. "You planned this from the beginning," he shouted. "I planned to defend my people," Amara replied. Their swords met again. The Emperor was stronger. The Queen was faster. Neither could gain the advantage. Then Lucius looked around him. His banners were falling. His soldiers were abandoning the field. The Black Eagle standards that had terrified kingdoms for generations disappeared beneath the storm. General Cassian rode to his emperor's side. "Your Majesty, we must withdraw." Lucius looked across the battlefield one final time. He saw exhausted farmers fighting beside seasoned warriors. He saw blacksmiths defending wounded soldiers. He saw women carrying water to the front lines despite the flying arrows. He finally understood the strength of Zaruma. Its greatest weapon had never been its walls. It had been its people. Slowly, the Emperor lowered his sword. He looked directly at Queen Amara. "No empire," he said quietly, "can conquer a nation that refuses to surrender its spirit." For a long moment, neither ruler spoke. Then Emperor Lucius turned to his army. "Sound the retreat." The imperial horns echoed across the battlefield. One by one, the remaining soldiers began to withdraw. General Cassian was the last to leave. Before riding away, he looked back at Queen Amara N'Dala. "We came here believing we would teach your kingdom fear." He bowed his head with respect. "Instead, you taught an empire humility." As the last imperial banners disappeared beyond the northern hills, a deep silence settled over the battlefield. Then from the city walls, a single voice cried out, "Victory!" Another answered, then another. Soon the entire kingdom echoed with joyful celebration. "Victory! Victory! Victory!" The people embraced one another with tears of relief. The long war was finally over. Years later, peace returned to Zaruma. The burned villages were rebuilt. The fields turned green once more. Trade caravans filled the markets again. Children who had survived the siege grew up hearing the story of the queen who had stood against the greatest empire of her age. Travelers journeyed from distant kingdoms not to see Zaruma's gold, but to learn how such a small kingdom had defeated a mighty empire. In the center of the capital, the people raised a simple stone monument. It did not celebrate war. It celebrated courage. Carved into the stone were Queen Amara's final words to her people. "A crown has meaning only when it protects those who place their hope in it. An empire may conquer land with fear, but only justice, unity, and courage can win hearts forever." And so the legend of Queen Amara N'Dala, the warrior queen who defeated an empire, was passed from one generation to the next, not because she sought glory, but because she proved that the greatest victories are won by leaders who stand beside their people when hope seems lost.